From one neighbor to another, WCTE PBS is here for you. Coming up next is Live at 5 on WCTE and our streaming platforms to give you updates on communities throughout the Upper Cumberland.
All right, welcome to WCTE's Live at 5, right here from the Putnam County Emergency Operations Center. I'm Becky Magura, President and CEO of WCTE, and I'm honored to have with me our Congressman, John Rose. Thank you so much, Congressman, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Becky. It's a privilege to be with you tonight and to talk with the folks all across the Upper Cumberland area.
Congressman Rose is our co-host for the night. We're going to have a great group of folks joining us, and we're talking about a lot of different things. But Congressman, this has been your freshman year, right? And so tell me what that's been like.
Well, it has certainly been, first of all, a great honor and privilege to represent the people of the 6th District of Tennessee, including my hometown, Cookeville. A real learning experience. Those who know me know that I've spent my career in the private sector as a businessman and farmer, and so it's my first foray into elected politics, and kind of an interesting time to be there. I had no idea going into this that we would experience one of the, I guess, most remarkable challenges in the history of the country.
Right.
And so it's an interesting vantage point to have as we go through this crisis. I know it's a challenge to everyone. Well,
it really is. But, you know, to have someone who has had incredible experience in our state as a businessman, it has to be a really a good feeling to know that you're making a big difference in people's lives.
Sure. As you know, I ran for office because I fear that the country we might pass on to our children, right. My son Guy, who's 2.5, might not be as good as the country that our parents passed on to us. And I hope to make a difference. And this is definitely an opportunity to step up and make that difference.
Well, thank you for being here. Congressman Rose is going to be with us. We're going to take you right now to our update of the mayor's briefings this week. So don't go away. And thank you for tuning in to Live at 5.
Today, as of 2 p.m., our total number of confirmed positives in Putnam County is 160, which is 21 more than yesterday. Of the 160 cases, 89 or 56% of those have already recovered. Our recovery rate in Putnam is much better than the state average of 46%. We also have had 5 deaths, all of which were from Signature Healthcare. So let's break down our numbers. In the past week, we have had 41 additional positives, which is not very good. It should be a strong reminder to you that the virus is still out there and people are still getting sick with it. Just remember, testing is a good thing. The more people we test, the more people we find that have the virus, and they are put into quarantine, so they cannot infect anyone else. Also remember, those are just the test numbers from the health department and do not include what has been done through private labs. Our drive-through testing continues to be available at our health department on County Services Drive and is open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. If you want to be tested, just drive by. They are testing anyone that wants to be tested, regardless of where you live, and please remember the test is free. The other counties in the Upper Cumberland that have confirmed positives are Cannon County has 12, Clay County has 5, Cumberland County has 84, DeKalb County has 25, Fentress has 5, Jackson County has 7, Macon County has 53, Overton County has 10, Smith County has 23, Van Buren has 2, Warren County has 8, and White County now has 15. As you can see, several of the other Upper Cumberland counties went up today also as testing expands statewide. Again, Putnam County has 160 confirmed cases, which is 21 more than yesterday.
Governor Lee has issued several executive orders opening back up parts of our economy. We can only report what we're getting from the governor's office. I know there are lots of questions, and please realize we don't have all the answers either. We can only go by the information we were being given. Please remember the governor issued the executive orders to close the businesses that he did, and so the governor is the only person that can now open them back up. Despite what you may have seen or heard from other surrounding counties, no city or county mayor has the legal authority to overturn a governor's executive orders. So according to those guidelines, restaurants, retail, and fitness facilities are now open at 50% capacity with extensive safety guidelines. barbers, beauticians, nail salons, tanning and massage therapists, along with dental offices, will open tomorrow.
We've had a lot of activity over the past couple days at the medical center. Just to give you an update, we have 10 positive COVID inpatients in the facility right now. We have a total now of 26 positive patients that we've taken care of over this pandemic period. As I said, this week's been a busy week. Yesterday we started elective surgeries back at the medical center. So as we gradually start to open back up our medical center, again, please be patient with us. We may run into some obstacles and we may have some things that don't work out just as planned. But again, we are trying to gradually open back up the facility.
It's not a time, however, to let our guard down. Caution is still to be taken, especially with the reopening of business by Governor Lee.
We will be going back to Nashville about May the 26th and start session June the 1st. When we go back, what we're looking at is actually a budget that is going to be severely impacted from April, May, and June probably, but because we had been very conservative in our estimates of growth and in our spending this past year, the Lord was looking out for us because we prepared a budget that hopefully will not be that much impacted negatively, where we should not have to dip into the rainy day fund, but the rainy day fund is at its largest point ever. Make sure that you're following the rules, and everything that we do, at first it was for protecting lives, now it's for restoring livelihoods, but liberty has never been challenged because all of these directives, all of these orders are suggestions, and that's why it's so important that people have taken it on themselves to do what's right, not only for themselves, for their friends, for their family, for their neighbors, and for strangers. And that's why Tennessee is Tennessee. We are the volunteers, and we will get through this together.
All right, great opportunity to catch up on what our mayors from throughout the Upper Cumberland and as well as some of our elected officials from Tennessee have been sharing this week and staying in communication. And Congressman Rose, thank you for being here and again sharing this time from Live at 5. We're happy to have you home and out of D.C.
Thank you, Becky. I appreciate that. I was saying to someone earlier today, Congress has, with a few exceptions, been out of session now for 6 or 8 weeks, and I was saying with some degree of humor, but with some degree of seriousness, that we all may be better off when Congress is not in session.
Well, I don't know about that because I'm going to tell you, I've been so impressed with the speed that Congress has been reacting to COVID-19 and how much you have been working to help. And I know I saw you during the tornado, shortly after the tornado struck Putnam County and throughout Middle Tennessee. What a blessing it is, really, to see your elected leaders come in during time of crisis.
Well, that was certainly a shock to our community, followed by, I guess you would have to say, in some ways, a greater shock through this crisis. Right. The response by the federal government, I think, has been really overwhelming in some regards. We've passed now 4 separate measures in direct response to the coronavirus pandemic, and expending or committing almost $3 trillion in relief funds across the spectrum in helping with not only the health care, the immediate needs of healthcare providers and the healthcare crisis, but also to help small businesses and others that have been impacted by the social distancing and the shutdown of the economy. Really unprecedented. And then on top of that, something most people are not aware of, the Federal Reserve has injected essentially another $6.5 trillion into the economy through various means. And so close to $10 trillion in economic impact, economic stimulus, all, of course, aimed at helping to keep the American economy, I guess you would say, on life support.
Right.
We came into this crisis, thankfully, with maybe the strongest economy, certainly in my lifetime, perhaps in the history of the country. And the hope is that we will be able to bounce back quickly.
Well, and I feel certain that, we're a determined people, and the Upper Cumberland is strong, and Tennesseans are strong, but our nation is as well. And I think, what are some of the stories that you're hearing that's most impactful about COVID?
Well, I think I guess one of the things that I would say is we have learned, and I don't say this to kind of be looking back with 2020 vision, but I think we've learned over the last many weeks that there is a vulnerable population, and that probably going forward, that's where we should be focusing our efforts. So we know that those that are in skilled nursing facilities,
right.
Older Americans, those who have pre-existing conditions, those are the ones that are most at risk. And I hope that as we go forward with any future federal response, that we, at least in terms of the healthcare response, that we really zero in on those affected individuals. And so if you're in those groups, you should be being very careful. And for the rest of us who hopefully are not in that group,
right.
we should be being mindful of our role in helping keep those people safe.
That's right. And the CDC has some very strong recommendations of how we can do that. And how is that sort of populated at the federal level?
Well, so of course, as we discussed earlier, the House has been closed down. We've come back on 3 occasions to vote, and with kind of increasing levels of social distancing
right.
and procedures to keep members safe, and our staffs have been working remotely. And so, those are the direct impacts that we see. But we do have to get back to work.
Yeah.
And so eventually we have to figure out how to do that. Mm-hmm. And I know we've been calling for the speaker to call us back into session so we can deal with the important work that needs to be addressed.
We're going to talk with you about that, about going back to Washington. But this is National Nurses Month, and we're really excited to have Rebecca Tolbert with us. And we're going to pinch hit here, take the Congressman out for a minute, and bring Rebecca in, and we'll be back with more from Live at 5.
El censo es una encuesta nacional que ocurre cada 10 años. El censo ayuda a determinar cómo usar fondos federales o estatales. Las preguntas son sencillas y no son sobre ciudadanía. Respuestas están seguras, confidenciales y protegidas por la ley. Fondos son asignados a cuántas personas son contadas en el censo. Los fondos serán reducidos o terminados si hay un conteo erróneo en nuestra comunidad. Tenemos que demostrar que aún necesitamos esos recursos. Hágase contar y ayude a asegurar que la siguiente generación reciba los recursos comunitarios, programas y la infraestructura que se merece. Programas como Head Start, CHIP y Medicare.
All right, we want to thank our teammate, Reggie Brown, there for doing a census spot for us. We want to remind people that the census is very important. We're going to be talking to the Congressman about that again in a few minutes. But Rebecca Tolbert is with us. Rebecca, you are, thank you for wiping down your mic there, practicing those important safe measures. You had a wonderful career at Tennessee Tech and a professor emeritus of nursing at the university. How important is this month of recognizing nurses?
Well, I think it's at the core of letting nurses know that we can say thank you. You are a special people. And we want to celebrate nurses, but we particularly here want to celebrate twofold. We want to celebrate nurses and we want to celebrate community. And by community, I mean all those other healthcare providers that have been so very instrumental in the last 2 crises that we've had in the last 2 months here.
Right.
From physicians to the persons that clean. Maybe the persons that clean may be the most important right now.
Right.
And then also our emergency service workers and then our community volunteers. We know what they have meant to this community during this time.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And, what challenges are there? You've been a nurse and you've instructed nurses. And what challenges are there for healthcare workers right now in the midst of this crisis?
I think keeping themselves safe. Mm-hmm. They have to try, and we've seen pictures on TV where they've not been safe, but I think they have to keep themselves safe so that they can, in fact, then minister to those who they are needed. And you see them truly on the front line. You see them outside the car when they are taking the sample of the test, and that's
Right.
probably a registered nurse in all of those, unless they did train a few National Guard members to do that.
Right.
And then you see them in the hospital, you see them in the emergency room, you see them on the floor that's just been devoted to taking care of COVID-19 patients. And then there's a little tent outside the emergency room so that people who are suspicious don't go in the emergency room, and that's staffed by nurses as well.
You know, I'm just so grateful. So thank you to all the healthcare providers. Just thank you. And I want to thank you because as a nurse educator, our future is very dependent on nurse educators.
Yes.
So what do you say to really encourage a young person to choose this as a career?
Well, we started the nursing program 40 years ago this fall.
At Tennessee Tech?
At Tennessee Tech.
Wow.
Right. Now, I was just an infant when that happened. But in fact, I like to tell people who are interested in thinking about nursing, there are so many things you can do. You can do wellness nursing, or you can do sickness nursing. You can do home health nursing. There are just such a wide variety of areas. And so if you are in practicum and you don't like one area, don't give up. Go to another area, and you can find that, in fact, there's an area that suits your desires.
That is really important. And I want to remind folks, we are streaming live on Facebook. So if you have questions, thanks to a number of you who are tuning in and watching, good friends from all across the Upper Cumberland. Thank you so much for that. Rebecca, what is your take on COVID-19?
I think it's certainly a crisis. It is a pandemic. I think we have to look across our country and see that because of the size of our country, we are not like Italy. We need to be treated like New York, where it's been so bad, New Orleans and Louisiana area. But if we look at Middle Tennessee, not Nashville, but just Putnam County and those counties around it, we are seeing that we have not been as hard hit. And therefore, I think it's okay for us to go back to doing some of those things that we've been doing, such as people returning to work.
Right.
But again, we must continue social distancing. We must keep our hands washed and clean, use our sanitation when we need to, and wear masks when we're in places that we need to be wearing a mask.
With public
To protect anyone else as well as ourselves, and particularly those of us who are in the more vulnerable group.
Absolutely. It's so important. In the few seconds we have left, I want to give you a chance to give a big shout out to the nurses in the Upper Cumberland.
Thank you so much. It's been such a privilege to work with so many of you. I was faculty for many of you and supporters for all of you, to say hello and thank you for what you have done for all of us. You are truly to be celebrated.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, and for educating so many nurses, but also for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Becky.
All right, we'll be back with more of Live at 5, and our next special guest, Sydney Lunn, coming up.
WCTE celebrates National Nurses Month in May with the Tennessee Nurses Honor Guard. Traditionally celebrated from May 6th to May 12th each year, the American Nurses Association has expanded this to a month-long celebration in May to elevate and celebrate nursing and to recognize the contributions that nurses and nursing make to the community.
Ooh, what time does it air tonight? I think it's at 8. Oh, we're live again. Hey, and thanks, Sydney Lunn, for wiping down your mic there. You know, something that's really unique about PBS is American Portrait. And coming up on American Portrait tonight is a special. Sydney, you are a filmmaker. You're a key location director. You worked on the Nashville series the entire time, right?
That's right. So, yeah, I have like a lot of people in film, I have many different plates that I can spin when it's needed. But, you know, we've been talking recently about the American Portrait. I think that's such an amazing project that PBS is initiating. And when I heard about it last year at the annual meeting, no one knew what year we would be entering at this time. And what amazing stories people from the Upper Cumberland have a chance to share with the world.
That's right. You are serving on our film festival committee. WCTE, in coordination with Cookeville Performing Arts Center, will host our first WCTE PBS Film Festival in August. Now, we realize it may be a virtual film festival because we just don't know right now.
Well,
but it is scheduled
if it's good enough
for
for Con, it'll be good enough for us.
Well, there you go. There you go. So, Sid, you want to tell a little bit about the importance of that and why we're doing it?
Well, there are, I think, a couple of different facets to why it's important. One, it's a way for people who are creatives in our community to get together, to share their stories, but to meet other people who are also, that's always inspiring when you can get around other people who are also thinking about stories to tell and how they're telling their stories, the people that are inspiring them to get out and tell stories. To do that locally, not just to think about the big famous, the Sundance, the Cannes, the Tribeca, but to think about having a way for us as a community to celebrate that. And because of the kind of radius we're looking around the whole Upper Cumberland region, those can be so many different stories, different types of story. And some of the people I've already been talking to about potential submissions, some of them are a little abstract. Now, I know we want them to be nonfiction, but that can be historical, a historical narrative. It can be very straightforward, or it can be music oriented and abstract, but it can, so long as it's nonfiction. And this does dovetail with the American Portrait, I think, really well, because that's also that similar sort of thing, storytelling they're looking for, as well as it being a sort of compact short format.
Now, Sydney, you live in Nashville. You have worked all over the world, really, though, and the you
country.
have in the country, in the filmmaking business, and have had a tremendous career. How important is filmmaking and the creative arts to our state, especially in economic development?
It's huge. I think anybody would tell you that, you look at the research for other countries and other places and what filmmaking does for economic and community development. Tennessee's, one of their main industries is also tourism, which of course is taking a big hit right now. And when it's time for that to sort of gear back up, one of the ways that you can do that is by people seeing filmed media that has places they recognize or places they're inspired to go visit. I was just happened to listen to a podcast about Croatia and how many people have visited that because of Game of Thrones.
Oh.
Not that we're going to film Game of Thrones here, but there are stories that we can tell that make people want to come to Tennessee, and not just the cities. People think about visiting Nashville or Knoxville or Memphis for tourism purposes, Chattanooga as well, but also for the natural beauty. Smaller music festivals like Fiddler's Jamboree, where they actually get what they would refer to as an authentic experience. And I think Tennessee has that in spades. So
Absolutely.
It's a really great thing to celebrate.
Well, the Nashville series certainly did a lot for Nashville, right?
Sometimes I get a little bit more complaining than congratulating, but yes, it certainly did. Every time I see the Great Line bus tour go by one of our locations, I have to chuckle a little bit on the inside. Some of the residential neighborhoods are like, what? Yeah. But that I think is maybe not the most even way to look at it. That was such a rocket blast.
Right.
And usually these things are smaller, but for, this area, there's just so much to explore. I'm always finding something new every day, and I love that about what I do for work, and it's exciting to think that you can share that with all over the world.
Absolutely. So in the time we have left, WCT's Film Festival is going to be a non-fiction film festival. We're going to feature content that is in production. But, Sydney, people can actually compete.
Yes, definitely. We're going to have different categories. And we're still fine-tuning some of those categories. But one thing I do want to mention, because I think this is exciting and really dovetails well with the time right now, young people. I think we're going to have a young person's category. And so many people are looking, making their own videos right now when they can't get together personally. And so think about submitting those. I think it's great. And but we'll have, prizes and a way to celebrate the people who excel at what they do.
Absolutely. And you can learn more about that on our WCT website at Film Festival. And Sydney, we're going to watch American Portraits having a special 30-minute show tonight, I believe at 8.
Yeah, and I think this is just such a great way for people to become acquainted with what this American Portrait can be.
Check it out tonight at 8 o'clock, and we'll be back with Congressman Rose. Thank you so much, Sydney.
Thank you.
The Upper Cumberland Business Journal specifically serves business professionals and community leaders in the 14-county Upper Cumberland region of Tennessee. Our mission is to promote the advancement and overall well-being of business in the Upper Cumberland region. For more information, you can visit ucbjournal.com.
All right, we're back with Congressman John Rose. Thank you so much for being here. We're learning a lot about things happening in our region.
That's great. Yes, it's good to hear.
Yes. So we're excited about our film festival. You saw a little clip there about American Portrait that will be coming up, and also the film festival. So watch that tonight at 8 o'clock. It'll give you a better picture of how Americans all over the country are capturing 1-minute statements about how they're living in this time of really interesting times. People say that guy who said, "May you live in interesting times." We'd like to have a word with him, right? So Congressman, tell me what we saw earlier a census spot. So why is people taking the census such an important step?
Well, from the very beginning of the country, after the ratification of the Constitution, which in Article 1, Section 2, sets out the requirement that there will be a regular census. The first one had to occur within 3 years from the first meeting of the Congress, and then every 10 years, at least every 10 years following. And so the census is very important, and I encourage everyone to respond. It impacts citizens in two very important ways. Number one, their representation in the Congress of the United States, in the House of Representatives in particular, is determined based on the number counted in the census. And then secondly, and perhaps in this day and age, maybe just as importantly to many people, it determines the distribution of resources from the federal government that come back to this community, to this state. And so it's important that we count every individual. And so if you're like me, you've probably received this at your home, and I won't ask for any comments about why I still have mine. But the good news is that Tennessee's doing a good job of responding. We've had over 57%, almost 58% of Tennesseans have self-responded. I'm not among those, as you just saw.
You're going to get there, though.
And the 6th District, which includes Cookeville, of course, is doing even better with 59.4% of people responding.
Wow. That's tremendous. But the more people who respond, the more potential support comes back here, right?
That's right. So it affects virtually every aspect of federal funding and how much Tennessee's share will be. So even in the current coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic, to some degree, our population is determining how much aid Tennessee will receive.
Wow. Why do you think there's a fear of returning a census?
Well, I think, obviously you get documents you're not used to seeing, and it's a bit ominous, and it's one of those things that's easy to put off. I think some people feel like maybe it's an intrusion into their privacy, and so that causes them to hesitate. But it is one of those things that the Founding Fathers saw fit to put in the Constitution. We have an obligation to respond.
Absolutely. I'm not seeing any Facebook questions, so next time when the Congressman's here, hopefully we'll get a few more of those. We'd love to have you come in and we could do a town hall sometime.
Sure.
When will you go back to D.C.?
Well, that remains unknown. Some discussion I've heard today that perhaps as early as late next week. Republicans, and of course I serve as a Republican member. We're in the minority right now. The Speaker has complete autonomy with respect to the schedule for the House of Representatives. The Senate is back in session this week. And so we're hopeful that we'll return soon and can take up the business that needs to be done this year.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your service to our country, to our community, and thank you for living in the Upper Cumberland.
Well, thank you, and I deeply appreciate the opportunity to represent the people of my hometown and this community and all across the 6th District of Tennessee.
Thanks to each of you for tuning in. Thanks to our Live at 5 crew, all of you, Kate, Brandon, Brent, Bobby, Craig, Avery, everybody. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on Live at 5.
Tune in to WCTE.
Thank you for joining us at Live at 5. Be sure to tune in next time for additional updates on communities throughout the Upper Cumberland. From one neighbor to another, WCTE PBS is here for you.